Hello, people of the world, and welcome back on the Mary in Motion podcast. Today, I'm a bit sick. I'm sorry if you hear my voice and that it's a bit different or not very nice to hear. I'm getting better, but I had to record today, otherwise you wouldn't have had an episode today, which would be very sad. For today's episode, I want to talk about my time in Belgium, because if you don't know, I've been working for almost a year now, here in Belgium, in Brussels. My initial plan for my solo episodes was to do them in chronological order, but as I come close to the end of my Belgium time, I thought it would be good to just tell you how I feel in the moment and reflect on this year that I spent here. A lot has happened during this year, some good, some hard, and now felt like the right time to look back at it and tell you how I felt during this year, transitioning from being a student to being a so-called adult in my first corporate job, and also after traveling for more than 8 months in Asia and then going back to Europe. I had to go through both transitions at once. It was not so easy. The thing is, I wanted to come back. I was craving peace, comfort, pedestrian cities, public transport, and some routine after the chaos I lived in Asia. Because I don't know if you know, but in Asia I backpacked for a few months, and then I was working in Japan in an institute. It was a student job and it was some research, so it was very different from the job I got afterwards in Belgium. And still, even though I was working there for 6 months, I didn't feel like I was home or that I really had a routine, because it was for a bit of a short time, and because I was in such a foreign country that I was still traveling every weekend. The language was so different, like there were some culture shock moments every day. So I really wanted to come back after that much time, but I knew that I didn't want to come back for a long time. So I was looking for job offers that would just offer 1 year contract. So then I thought I would just spend 1 year in Europe, getting my batteries charged up, and then going back, I don't know where, but out there in the world. But then when I came back, reverse culture shock hit me in a way that I didn't know would happen. I wasn't expecting that. And especially because I came back to Belgium, which is not my home country. I'm from France originally. And let's be honest, but Belgium is not, personally, it's not my favorite country in Europe. If I could have chosen freely, I wouldn't have been going to Belgium, but at that time I found an offer for a 1 year contract there, and the company seemed nice first, and I also had other constraints that made Belgium the practical choice. The country is small, the weather is grey, and there are no mountains to hike. And after everything I had seen for the past year, or even the places where I've lived in France, it was really a downgrade in my head. Also, I was not living in the center of the city. I was quite far away from my work, so I didn't even have the a downtown apartment vibe that you could think would be good for living in Belgium. I don't know, because Brussels is a nice city, but I was living so far from the center that I couldn't really enjoy that. And I don't know, when you don't want to like it, you cannot like it. In November I started working, so this was my very first job. Until then I only had research internships, so it was also the first time that I was in a corporate, really like a corporate job, and being in a big company. When I arrived, I was a bit shocked because it was not really like I imagined it. So my job was in R&D, so research and development, and I really thought that I would do research, like I did in my previous jobs. However, this was such a big company that I really didn't do research, and I was assigned to projects that were just trying to maintain the level that the company already had. So it was not very enriching for me to be there, and I really thought I would develop new products, that we would have some brainstorming sessions, that everyone would be super dynamic and everything, but actually I was greeted by inertia, hypocrisy, and the adaptation time was quite hard. I have quite a strong personality, and I was told that I had to be well seen by others, that I had to tell people exactly what they wanted to hear instead of what I really thought. I was told not to correct people even though they were wrong, and especially my manager told me that I had to be less confident. So basically everything that I had lived before was flipped upside down. When I was traveling, being yourself, taking initiatives were valued, and you could be true with yourself when you were with others. And yet when I arrived there, apparently in the real world, you cannot do that, which was very hard at the beginning. So I had a lot of feedback sessions with my colleagues where they were telling me what I would need to change and everything. And at the beginning, I really didn't want to, and I thought that I would directly quit. But then I thought that maybe all of the companies were like that, and that if I hoped to ever work in a regular company, I would need to do that. So I decided to learn, but I was deeply scared of losing myself and losing who I was just to correspond to their standards. And also I thought that if to work in such a company, I needed to change that much, then I didn't want to work for them. Anyway, I still tried to adapt, and I think it worked. I mean, if I didn't adapt, I would have spent every day just hating it, which I kind of did, but less. At the beginning, I was very scared of losing myself, that I would start to believe them, that to succeed I had to tame my personality instead of letting it shine. But I found a way. I learned to adapt, but not to conform. I played the game just enough to survive, but I kept a part of myself alive. And at the end of the year, so not so long ago, they asked if I wanted to stay longer, another year or even more, and I refused, obviously. And they were shocked because they couldn't understand that I didn't see it as a great opportunity as they all did, but for me I just saw it as another nightmare, and I couldn't stay there. I also had other plans coming, way more exciting, because I knew that it would be only 1 year, as the contract said at the beginning, so I already started to plan what I would do afterwards. So really, staying there wasn't an option in my head, and staying stuck in that system was the last thing I wanted. Everything that I just told you happened, but I didn't expect that. What I was fearing the most when I started was to not be able to travel anymore. When I was traveling Asia, when I was backpacking, every day was a new adventure. Even when I was living in Japan, I had plans all the time. I was taking weeks off to go on road trips, exploring some other parts of the island. Every day was something different. And in Belgium, I imagined that I would be stuck in the same office, in the same city for years and years. And that idea made me very sad. But it turned out different, because I made it different. I started planning short trips, sometimes abroad, sometimes just inside Belgium to discover the country. And I realized that really Europe has a lot to offer because the countries are smaller. It's super nice to go from one country to another, and it's quite easy. And you can go by train or buses, not like in Asia when you want to do several countries, you often have to take the plane, or like if you take a bus, it takes like days and days. And I started to discover my country, France, because I've always lived in the south, and now being in Belgium, I was more close to the north, and I discovered a lot of cities that I had never seen before, even Paris that I never really visited before, and that I really love. All of my weekends were taken. I tried to make the most out of the time I had out of work. And what really helped was the flexibility of my job, because there are a lot of bad things, but also some good ones. Like that I have 2 home office days a week, and that the working hours are quite flexible. So I could go on long weekend trips or working home office abroad, and that gave me the freedom to travel even further than I could have otherwise. Every weekend felt like a mini adventure. So in the end, I traveled way more than I thought I would. Not in the same way that I did before, but enough to keep me alive. But then I raised another issue, because I've always considered myself concerned for the sustainability of the planet and everything, and I had to compromise between keeping on with my little trips that really helped me to get out of my work, and the sustainability issue. A lot of the time I was flying with Ryanair, for example, or other low-cost airlines, because they're super cheap, they're fast, they make it easy, but it's also terrible for the planet. For coming back home in the south of France, I had the choice between a 1-hour Ryanair flight that was maybe 20 euros 2 ways, and that would leave me right next to my home, or I could have taken between an 8 or 10 hour train, an 8 or 10 hour train, where I would have to change train stations in Paris, and that would just take the whole day and would be so stressful. While there, I could just take the plane, which I did. And sometimes I wonder if it was the right choice. And I have a lot of people around me that really don't agree with these. And sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't. But for me, it's still an open question. So yeah, I've been stuck in this contradiction. I want to see the word, but I know that the way I travel isn't sustainable. I don't have a perfect answer yet. Sometimes I choose the train, sometimes the bus, sometimes I fly. But at least now I'm aware, and I think awareness is already the first step. And let's see if I manage in the future to be more sustainable in my travels. I would love to meet someone that only does sustainable travel. So if someone is listening to us that does that, please come to the podcast and share your experience and your tips with us. Now that I look back to the year I just spent in Belgium, I see a difficult transition from the chaotic freedom that I had in Asia to the structure and grayness that met me in Europe. I see a lot of challenges at work, adapting, and I see a lot of fear of losing the travel, of being stuck in a life I don't like, but also some surprises. I've met some amazing people, I've started the podcast, and I have explored a lot my home continent. Now I know it better, and I like that, because why would I explore the other half of the world while I could explore what's around my house? This year taught me that in life you don't have to fit in one box. You can be an employee and still be a traveler. You can adapt without losing yourself. But, and this is important, I also know that I wouldn't want to stay in this still life forever. 1 year was enough for me. And I just hope that whoever is listening to me doesn't stay in a life that I don't fully like, because it's your life, you only have one. If you just wait for retirement to do something good that you truly like with your life, you will regret it someday. And if you have the opportunity to leave, or if you just lack the courage, I just hope that you will find it and that you will find a better life. That's all I wish for you, and that's all I wish for myself too. And I'm eager to travel full-time again, to live more freely. I can't wait for my contract to finish, and I'm looking for unconventional ways to make money while still being happy. And I hope I will find it someday. Or maybe in a future episode you will hear that I found another corporate job, but in a company that fulfills me better. So that's where I'm at today. A year in Belgium, a year of contradiction, a year of learning what I want and what I don't want, which actually I'm grateful for, because now after this year, I really know what I don't want in my life, and that's also very good. If I had never worked this job, I wouldn't have known that corporate jobs are like that big companies are really not a fit for me. So at least I know, and I'm happy that I had the courage to say no to another year, because that's really not for me. If you are going through something similar, maybe moving back home after some travel, maybe starting your first job, I hope you find comfort in knowing you are not alone in the struggle. Thank you for listening, and as always, more adventures are coming soon.